So the emotional scale that we are talking about goes all the way from despair or depression, all the way up to what you would call ecstasy or passion. And of course, there are many words that you can use to describe the emotions or the states of being along the way. But we would like to point out to you here that all of those different stopping points, you might have emotional set points depending upon different subjects or different relationships. You might feel hopeful about dollars and you might feel in despair about relationships, or you might feel worried about your body while you feel hopeful or appreciative of money. In other words, different subjects you feel different ways about. So you have different emotional or vibrational set points because you've practiced different thoughts. When you think a thought, you activate within yourself the vibration of that thought. And if you approach that thought often enough, then that often activated vibration becomes so familiar in your vibration that it becomes a dominant activated vibration. Once something is a dominant vibration within you, you call it a belief. And we would like to point out to you that a belief is just a thought you keep thinking. That's all a belief is. You can believe things that serve you and you can believe things that don't serve you, but until you are aware of your own guidance system, you might be giving a lot of attention to things just because someone says to you, well, it's true, you should give your attention to it. And we say, knowing what we know about law of attraction and knowing what we know about why things manifest in your lives, knowing what we know about why things are true to you, that the only reason that something is true is because you've given it your attention and you've activated in your vibration and you've done it often enough that you created a vibrational alignment with it, and then law of attraction matched that vibration with the reality. So when you say, Abraham, I have to give my attention to this unwanted thing because it's true, we say, think about what you're saying. You're saying somebody out there, for whatever reason, gave their attention to this thing they did not want, and did it often enough, they activated it in their vibration long enough that they manifested it, and because they've done that, you should too. And we say to you, we would be a little more picky than that if we were standing in your physical shoes. We would be particular about what we give our attention to. Because what you give your attention to is what you activate in your vibration, and what you activate in your vibration becomes your point of attraction, and what is your point of attraction eventually becomes manifestation. Now, we talk to you about this not just because we're wanting you to rein in the manifestations that please you and head off the manifestations that don't please you. Manifestation is a big part of this physical life experience. But we say this to you also because we want you to be aware of how you are feeling moment by moment, because right now, while you're feeling, is your life. In other words, it's all about right now. It's not about later when the manifestation's coming. It's right now while you're thinking about the manifestation coming or not coming. In other words, now is now. Think about the power of now. It's all right now, isn't it right now? Here we are. We are in Texas. In New York, it is an hour later. In California, it is 2 hours earlier, but it's still now. On the other side of the world, it's not even daylight, but it's still now. In the non-physical realm, we don't even have clocks or calendars, but it is still now, you see. It's now. Now is where the juncture between you and you meet. Now, right now. And how you feel now matters. When we talk about now, we are not saying only think about what's right now. This room is rather limited. We're not encouraging you to only think about podium, rug, microphone, Jerry. In other words, we're not asking you to only think about what's in your now surroundings. We are saying to you that in your now, whether you think about the past or whether you think about the present or whether you think about the future, as you're doing it now, you are activating a vibration which jives with who you really are or doesn't, which allows your alignment with your source or doesn't. And so when you begin to care about the way you feel, then you begin to tend to that connection between you and you. And that is everything. That is everything, because that is your lifeline. Better stated, that is your life. That's who you are, you see. So, when you make a decision that nothing's more important than that you feel good, now you are on the track. Now you're back in control of your own life experience, because you can tell by the way you feel what your vibrational countenance is. Joseph Campbell, one of your magnificent physically focused teachers, said to you, in the best words that we have ever heard articulated from your physical human tongue, follow your bliss. And we say, if you would take that encouragement and you would work to follow your bliss, you would fulfill your reason for being, you would live happily ever after, you would connect with your source energy, you would be valuable to everyone who knows you, you would thrive in all manner. But then we have to say to you that if you are in despair and some bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, fluffy student of Abraham or a student of well-being says to you, follow your bliss, you can't even get a whiff of bliss from depression or despair. The vibrational frequencies are so different. All they do is irritate you, don't they? They say, you create your own reality, and you think that can't be true or you'd be gone. I really don't need you here harassing me about how I should feel, because how I feel is how I feel. And what we're wanting to say to you is, yes, that's right. How you feel is how you feel. But you have more control over how you feel than you realize if you care about how you feel. If it really matters to you that you feel good, then you will make short work of anything that feels bad by reaching for better and better and better and better and better feeling thoughts. And so today, we will be doing quite a bit of moving up the emotional scale. We also want to point out to you at the outset something that very few of you have made the conscious awareness part of your day-to-day experience, and we really want you to do this. We want you to feel that in this emotional scale, where there is despair and where there is rage and where there is fear and where there is anger and where there is frustration and where there is overwhelmment and where there is hopefulness and where there is doubtfulness and where there is wanting to believe and where there is believing and where there is knowing and where there is appreciation and where there is love. On this emotional scale, all the way from that joyous love vibration all the way to that suffocating vibration of despair or depression. This emotional scale is about your perception of freedom and nothing else. Because up here in the joy range, there is perceived empowerment. And down here in the despair range, there is perceived lack of empowerment. And every emotion is about your perceived degree of your personal empowerment. And the reason that we are so clear about this is because we know who you really are and we know how you really feel. And we know that when you're in full connection with who you really are and how you really feel, that you feel empowered. And someone who feels empowered is not afraid. Someone who feels empowered is not defensive. Someone who feels empowered is not blameful or angry or any of those degrees of emotions, you see. So, it's all right if you are any of those things. We just want you to understand that something's happened in your experience that has caused you to perceive a lack of freedom. And we want you to return to your knowledge here today that it can only be a perceived lack of freedom, because there is no such thing as a lack of freedom, because no one can get inside of you and vibrate you. No one can cause you to offer your vibration. No one else can offer your point of attraction. Only you can. Now, they can influence it. We know. They can behave so powerfully and you can observe them so completely that you can begin to vibrate as they influence you to vibrate. We acknowledge that. But we want you to leave here knowing that you are so free that you could choose bondage, but you are so free that you are the only one who is choosing it. And as we play together today, it is our expectation that you will hear enough and watch enough people move up the emotional scale, that you will leave here feeling, at least believing somewhat, that you can control the way you feel because you can guide the direction of your own thoughts. I'm going to tell you one quick story. Many of you have heard it a few times, but we want to start here because it is the basis of everything that we're going to talk about here today. As you travel from city to city, it's not hard for you to understand the journey because you know what direction you're headed and you know the road is there. As Jerry and Esther travel from Phoenix to San Diego, they know it's 400 miles and they just head west. And with reasonable speed, they will get there reasonably soon. So they don't fret when they're in Yuma at the halfway mark. and get so disoriented that they turn around and go back to Phoenix. They don't get lost. The highway signs and the compass on their navigational system all make it so understandable. It's a quantifiable journey. And so even though much of the journey they're not where they really want to be, they are not frustrated or worried about it. They're happily on their way. But there are many journeys that you take, like the journey from not enough money to plenty of money, or from being sick in your body to wanting to be well in your body, that are not nearly so quantifiable. And we see often that while you are well along your way to your journey, you stop midway and take score, and because the manifestation isn't what you think you need, you sort of freak out, lose your connection, and often turn around and head in the opposite direction of what you're looking for. So we want you to discover here today a tool that helps you tell which direction you're headed. When you're paying attention to the way you feel, you can feel so surely when you're headed in the right direction. Now, why is the journey between not enough money and plenty of money, or no relationship to the perfect relationship, or a terrible relationship to an improved relationship, or a sick body to a really good feeling body? Why are those journeys so not understandable? Well, it's because you're trying to listen to so many different approaches and so many different opinions about which way you should go. But there's another reason. More than 99% of every creation is complete on an energetic level before you begin to see any evidence. So if you have understanding of what you're doing during that 99.99% time of working, if you understand what you're doing, then you can spend all of that time headed toward the manifestation that will be there. Does that make sense? Think about it. Jerry and Esther are headed from Phoenix. They're on their way to San Diego. They get in Yuma. They don't want to be in Yuma. They get out and they freak out. They get out and it's hot. It's in the desert. There's no place to eat in Yuma. No place they want to eat in Yuma. They worry about it. They bicker about it. They fight about it. They get all disoriented and they get back in their car and they head across the desert in the wrong direction. Now, it's ridiculous, we know, when you think about that kind of a journey. But is it conceivable that they could just spend the rest of their time Phoenix, Yuma, Phoenix, Yuma, Phoenix, Yuma, Phoenix, Yuma, Phoenix, Yuma, Phoenix, Yuma, till finally they say, oh, well, we'll just stay in Phoenix. Never mind. At least there's someplace to eat in Phoenix. And yet that's what you do all the time, because you do not realize that there are two journeys that are running concurrent. There's this action journey, which is the manifestational stuff, and then there is this emotional journey, which is the way you feel stuff. And if you could really get it, that your work is to tend to the emotional journey. Your work is to find a way of feeling good now, even though the manifestation hasn't come. We were visiting with a woman recently who had very unpleasant, painful, arthritic hips. Her hips hurt when she walks. Her hips hurt when she gets in the car. Her hips hurt when she sits. Her hips hurt. And we said to her, you know, your hips can hurt and you can feel hopeful. Or your hips can hurt and you can feel discouraged. And the difference in feeling hopeful and feeling discouraged makes the difference about how long your hips will hurt. So you could have not nearly enough money and feel fear or despair. Or you could have not nearly enough money and feel hopeful. And the difference between despair and hopeful speaks the difference between how long you're not going to have nearly enough money. Are you getting this? In other words, you have been so action-oriented and so interested in taking score and so interested in telling it like it is and speaking the facts that you have not been even aware of the emotional guidance which is telling you about your emotional journey. And when you make the decision that you're going to start tending to your emotional journey, it is our promise to you that not only will you close the gap between where you are and where you want to be on every subject that is important to you, but you'll start enjoying the journey no matter where you are. You'll start realizing that where you are is just fine. Well, we think you heard that clearly. We've never said it more clearly. So as we are moving forward here today, we'll be talking to you about the two concurrent journeys that are running alongside of each other.